So this is our physical versus chemical changes lab. So I've already put the powders out on the display sheet. So the first row is baking powder, the second row is baking soda, the third row is cornstarch, and then the fourth row is sugar. So what you need to do on your data table 1 for the first column is write down what it looks like unmixed. So what do baking powder, baking soda, cornstarch, and sugar look like before they're mixed with anything? Now in the second column, I'm going to mix each of these with water. So when I do this, you need to note, what does it look like? What happens? So when I mix the baking powder with water, you should see that it starts fizzing and it's forming bubbles. When I mix the baking soda with water, you can see it's fizzing and it's making bubbles. When I mix the cornstarch with water, the cornstarch dissolves, but there's no fizzing, there's no bubbles. And when I mix it with sugar, this is powdered sugar, the sugar dissolves, but there's no fizzing, there's no bubbles. So that was water. Now we're going to go down the second column. The second column is mixing with vinegar. So when I mix vinegar with baking powder, you need to see that there's fizzing and bubbles, a lot more than what we had with the water. And you can even hear it. And then when I mix the vinegar with the baking soda, you get an even more vigorous reaction. It's louder, there's more bubbles, and it's fizzing. When I put the vinegar on the cornstarch, there's no reaction. It starts dissolving. The bubbles that you did see there, those were bubbles that were produced because there were air bubbles mixed in with the vinegar. And then I'm doing it with the sugar now. And with the sugar, again, the sugar dissolves, but there's no bubbling, there's no fizzing. Okay, so the last column is mixing with iodine. So first I want you to see what the iodine looks like by itself. Can you see that it's kind of a reddish, orangish reddish dot? So when I mix the iodine with the baking powder, you should see that there's a color change. You need to write down what the color change looks like. When I mix it with the baking soda, when I mix it with the cornstarch, and then when I mix it with the powdered sugar. So that's our physical versus chemical changes lab. In data table 1, you need to write down just what it looked like. In data table 2, you need to write down whether it was a physical change or a chemical change, and then your evidence, how do you know what physical change or chemical change did you see?